Hey everyone, it's Dee from CatalystEnergies. Thanks for joining me. I'm so grateful that you're here. And this is your December monthly report for 2019. We are coming up on 2020. And December is, wow, it's a really potent time. There's a lot of opportunity here. Also, a lot of challenges. We have a full moon in Gemini and then a new moon in Capricorn that is an annular solar eclipse. So we're going to go into this with a little bit of a different feel today. We're going to look at the archetypes and the symbols and some imagery that are associated with each of these transits, and give you an opportunity to really interact with the symbols that are associated so that they can activate what's going on for you in your life, and using the archetypes as a form of synchronicity to allow you to be much more of an active participant in creating your story. That's, the astrology and tools like tarot are so useful in that way of bringing out what is actually inherent within us in terms of where we're going, what our path is, what our purpose is, and who we truly are. So let's jump right to it, because there is a lot of information and I want to keep it as succinct as possible. So it's the 3rd right now, and I know it's a little late. This is a new format though. And I want to start with Jupiter in Capricorn, because that is just what happened yesterday. And so a couple things first, just to understand how this is getting situated, is that in the tarot, each card in the major arcana is symbolized by either a sign, a zodiac sign, or a planet itself. In the minor arcana, each card is representative of a specific decan of a sign. And so a decan is a cluster of 10 degrees in each sign. So each sign has 3 decans, 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 20 to 30, roughly. So in the minor arcana, each card is associated with a particular decan, and then there's a planet associated with it. Sometimes these transits that we're going to talk about are aligned with and are actually the ruler of that card in that decan, and so they tend to be even more powerful. And sometimes they don't, but you can still see and feel the energy behind each symbol and use it to kind of understand more about the particular planet or the transit or what it could actually bring up for you. So when we start with Jupiter in Capricorn, we're talking about the first decan. So we're talking about the first 10 degrees, and that just happened yesterday on the 2nd. So first decan, right? So the ruler of the first decan of Capricorn is the 2 of Pentacles, or in the Thoth deck, which I'll show you in a minute, is the two of discs. And it is Jupiter in Capricorn, ruled by Jupiter in Capricorn. So this card, this first decan of Capricorn, is ruled by Jupiter. And so Jupiter being here is even more supported. It's even more aligned with the energy. So it is, and you can see here with this imagery that there is this aspect of harmonious balance that is absolutely necessary. Capricorn is an earth sign. It is a cardinal earth sign. It's about initiation and activation and creating something, moving forward. And so it's about building things, about building structures, creating structures that are secure and that are safe. It's the 10th house of the zodiac, so it has to do with, in the process of individuation, what is your career? What are you bringing to the table for the public? What's your public position in the community? Like, how are you showing up, and what is it building for the community? That is what Capricorn. It's very enterprising. Oftentimes it does not take other people's feelings into account, because Capricorn is very much a paternal, I know what's best for you type of energy, and it is going to build regardless of what anybody thinks about it. And this is how things, on the one hand, this is how things are built. There's a lot of energy behind it, but on the other hand, it could be considered cold. It could be considered unfeeling, and is oftentimes related to the patriarchy. And so that in itself is kind of a loaded term. So thinking about how all of these energies have their polarity points, their negative and their positive, their masculine, their feminine, whatever. I mean, Capricorn is an earth sign, which is a feminine element. So that's something to consider as well, that it's not all masculine. The Two of Pentacles is ruled by Jupiter. It has to do with change, the Lord of change, harmonious balance. Now we're going to have Jupiter in this sign for the next year. And right now it's going to be in this first decan for quite a while. So we can expect that the best way to utilize this energy to get the most out of what we just went through with Jupiter and Sagittarius is to start practicing juggling. I know that sounds kind of ridiculous, but this is what's happening here. This character is juggling these two discs, and the discs are material resources, whatever those are for you. This represents the need for fluidity in order to have harmonious balance. If you ever juggled or tried to juggle, it is very awkward at first, and you have to make a lot of mistakes, and you have to just keep trying and trying and trying until you built up the muscle memory when you finally get it, and you've built the neural pathways that allow the actual motion to happen. And then at that point, you don't have to think about it. It's just something that you do. So right now, especially Jupiter just moving into Capricorn, there might be a little bit of kind of awkwardness. We might need to practice our juggling a little bit, but really it's about being in the flow. This is the Thoth deck. Yeah, let's see if we can get it to go forward. Yeah, it's not a great picture because it's a little bit small, but it's the same idea, the Lord of change. And so you have the Ouroboros here, the infinity of it all, and you have the yin and yang aspects balanced, and balance and balance and balance and balance. It is the idea that there is a cycle, an infinite cycle, and that the balance of these energies is necessary to create something. And we have to start here with this aspect of balance. So the image I have been really thinking about, and I want to bring to your attention because it's really helped me understand it, is this image of Doctor Strange. Regardless if you've seen Doctor Strange or not, what's happening here is that he has expanded the energy in between his hands, and it's brought it out to a point, and eventually he's able to use it as a form. In form, it becomes physical form. He's able to use the energy that has come out of his expansion and use it as a weapon, use it as a block, whatever he wants to use it for. But Jupiter in Sagittarius has been about this expansion. And especially going over the galactic center, it's really about like the expansion, not just of us personally, but of the collective and the galaxy. You know, we don't know what's going on out in the galaxy, but you know, we're not the only beings that potentially could be evolving if we are in fact not alone. I mean, I personally don't believe that we are, but that's not really the issue. The issue here is like understanding the archetypes of these and the symbols and the meanings that we get from it. And so this imagery has really been helping me understand that the expansion has been happening with Jupiter and Sagittarius, and now we're at a point where we're working on solidifying it, but that can only happen if we're in control enough to let it be fluid and balanced, and that's where the juggling comes in. So it could be a little awkward at first. I feel like it's kind of awkward. But Jupiter is about abundance and good fortune and optimism. And so as long as we're tapping into that, I feel like that we are getting some really good, we're getting out ahead of where a lot of this Capricorn energy is eventually going, because we're really going to get a pile up of it at the end of the month, especially with the solar eclipse in Capricorn. I think that things will be much more solidified and structured by that point. And so really taking advantage of Jupiter here is very necessary. So we're going to clear out these notes. We're going to move on because this is still week one. And the next major transit that I want to talk about is Mercury coming out of shadow. Now that's going to be on the 7th of the month. That is the Mercury exits shadow. What does that mean? Mercury comes out of the place that it went retrograde in October on Halloween. So Mercury went retrograde at between 27 and 28 degrees and has been retrograde. Now it's been out of retrograde for a while now, but it's still in shadow. That means it is still going over the points that it went over during the retrograde. So Mercury in Scorpio been investigating and diving deep into the underworld. So the underworld is a lot of things to a lot of people. Scorpio is about the subconscious. It is about the dark corners. It is about the hidden realms. It's about death and rebirth. It's about intimacy. It's about sexuality. It's about power. And it's about the power that is inherent in relationships. And so Scorpio is the 8th house. 8th house is about business. It's about trust. It is about responsibility to other people that you have relationships with. It is about shared resources. Once you are in a relationship of any kind, business, intimate, or whatever, at that point, it is not just you that is involved, but it is some other entity or multiple entities. And that is where the power dynamic rests, is in that space. So Mercury has been going retrograde and now is moving direct through this place. In Greek mythology, Hermes was the only god that was able to go into the underworld and come back out. No other god was able to do that because Mercury was able to move swiftly. So there is a proficiency here. Mercury is the one for the job to go into these places and come back out unscathed, right? We're in the third decan, not fourth, there is no fourth, third decan of Scorpio, which is the 7 of Cups. There's a lot of stuff being presented to us, almost overwhelming. A lot of things that we want, a lot of things that we could obsess over, a lot of things that we are driven to have. Scorpio wants what she wants, and it has to do with what she wants to satisfy her emotions. It is the deepest connection on a soul level when it comes to relationships. There's a lot going on here. And when you get to this third decan, it's very possible to get lost in the water, in the dark water, in the dark places. This has to do with our psychology. It has to do with potentially going into psychotherapy to analyze these things. Now, this is the Thoth deck. So Venus in Scorpio is the third decan of the 7 of Cups. You can see here that this is way down. It's viscous. It is it's kind of gross and slimy. She doesn't like, Venus has a hard time in this position, and that's why she is ruling this third decan, because she wants things to feel good and to look good. And when she gets stuck in here, this is the dark forest, the mythical creatures that come out at night. And there's a real potential here to get lost. And some people may have been getting lost. I mean, getting stuck in that feedback loop of dark thoughts, dark energies, deep, dark feelings of despair, and maybe becoming obsessive about things that you can't control. That's been a big theme now that I'm saying that. So this imagery here is the dark forest, and is this creature here, this person who's comfortable in this place, comfortable in the dark forest, comfortable in the forest at night, lurking around. Very instinctual, is not really doing anything based on light. Mercury does not want to stay here, and Mercury is not going to stay here. It's coming out of shadow at the very end. So this is the mastery level of Scorpio, these last degrees of Scorpio. And so Mercury has managed to get down there and really pull some stuff out, and there could be some real understanding of these places within ourselves that we could tap into. And so the week, you know, we're kind of getting, like, again, we're practicing the juggling. It might be a little awkward, but by the end of the week, wow, Mercury coming out of shadow and kind of like coming up from the depths, we really could get some major insight and understanding into what's been going on and possibly been holding us back in some ways. So I feel like this is a really good week to take advantage of where Mercury has been investigating, to not be afraid, but to not get stuck there. That is definitely the potential. All right, so I'm going to clear out here the notes because we're going to move forward to the next week. So we're looking now at week 2. We're in week 1. So week 2 is starting with the 8th of December. The major transits for the 8th, we'll start with the 8th. There are 2 big transits on the 8th. We have Jupiter squaring Chiron. So we already talked about Jupiter, first decan of Capricorn. Chiron has been in Aries decan 1 for a long time. It is retrograde, actually. Chiron is retrograde. Chiron is the wounded healer. Wounded healer is the original wound, the shame and guilt around the original wound. And the thing about Chiron is that he was immortal, but he was incredibly, he was one of the most gifted and talented at being an astrologer and in the esoteric arts and a healer. But he could not heal himself. When he was wounded by Hercules, he could not heal the wound, and he lived with incredible pain as a result of it. Eventually, there was something that happened later down the line that he traded his immortality in order to take the place of Prometheus, who was being punished for giving fire to the humans. But that's something we're going to talk about later because it actually does come up. Chiron is the wounded healer, being in Aries. So while we have the Aries, so the 2 of Wands is dominion, and it is, Aries is all about the ego. Ego, I am that I am. It's all about mine, me, mine, which is not necessarily a bad thing. It is the first house. It is the seed point of everything. It is fire in its, Aries is cardinal fire. It is initiatory fire. It is the spark of life. And these are all really important things to have as a human or any life form coming into being. Aries, or Chiron being here and being retrograde has really brought to the surface our wounds, our original wounds around who we are. What is the seed point? What is the initiatory spark for who we are? And the wound around that. Now, it is also the wounded masculine, not just in men, but in all of us. We all carry a masculine signature in some way. That aspect of us we have been faced with that aspect of our wounding now for quite a while as Chiron is moving retrograde. And Chiron's going to turn direct this same week on the full moon. So that is something that is very significant because now this like wounding is going to move forward and it's going to be very activated and it's going to move through all of Aries. And so this wounding is going to be on the surface. Now, where it is going to become a square with Jupiter in Capricorn this is a point of tension. These are conflicting trajectories that could really put a kink in our spokes if we are not aware, you know, what's happening. This could really have us focusing more on this wounding and asserting ourselves and this wound, when what we are still doing is we're still learning how to juggle everything. So these conflicting trajectories with Chiron squaring Jupiter could really set us back if we are not careful. And this is why Mercury coming out of shadow, I think, is so important before this is happening, because it could help mitigate some of the tension that will come around because of this. It could be utilized It could be taken and transmuted into some sort of initiatory action that who we are and taking care of that wound could very well be give us the spark to you know, to motivate us to get even better at the juggling or to bring something into form. But I would really caution people to be mindful of this. On the same day, we have, so we're going to move forward. I want to show you. So this is a very powerful card, Mars in Aries, cardinal fire. The Rider-Waite deck is a little bit less like, you know, Dominion. I mean, this is Dominion too, but it's a little bit more enterprising and kind of like, it seems less intense. It's more just like, I have the world in my hands and look at everything that is before me. You know, much more laid back about it in some ways, like very sure of himself. And I guess that's the Dominion part of it too, but it's so much more fiery than in this card. So, you know, that's why I put them both there, because those energies could really speak to people differently. So as we move forward though, we're on the same day, we're going to have the Sun in Sagittarius squaring Neptune in Pisces as well. So I'm going to clear these notes real quick. And then we're going to put some more text here. So Sun in Sagittarius, Sun in Sag, Decan 2, 9 of Wands. So another Wands energy, fire energy. Strength. Now let's look at, there's a couple, we'll look at both cards, but right now we're going to look at this card here, 9 of Wands. You see the Sun is at the top of the card, but all the energy of the card is moving down towards the moon. Even here, the moon is on the tip of every wand. And so, and then you even have the sign of Sagittarius in the moon. And what is the moon? The moon is us, within us. It is how we feel inside. The Sun in Sagittarius is so optimistic. It is showing us who we could be, who we're aspiring to be, and very, you know, aiming high, the big ideas, the overall big picture. But we're taking that energy and bringing it down into us, into the root of us, into the unconscious, subconscious, the feminine aspect of us on the inside. And that's where the real strength comes from. And so we have the Sun here provide, you know, activating this type of energy, this really this mastery level of the wand suit, the 9 of Wands, bringing it into us and providing that strength. When you look at the card in the Rider-Waite deck, if I can get it, oh, that's the wrong one. That's going to be Neptune. Oh, maybe, oh, it's in a different spot. We'll get to it. This is, on the other hand, we are looking at the square with Neptune in Pisces, and that is Neptune in the second decan, Neptune in Pisces, which is where Neptune has been for also a while. Neptune been in this place quite a while as well. We have the 9 of Cups. Happiness. There's a lot of overflowing energy here, emotional energy. There is, all these cups are full. They're so full that they're spilling over. And it is Jupiter in Pisces. Jupiter actually was the original ruler of Pisces. It was Jupiter in Pisces that is the ruler of this second decan of the cups, so the 9 of Cups. There is this, I think that this is going to be, this decan of Pisces is really, could either really bring us to a point of spiritual fulfillment, like really recognizing like how full we are spiritually, because Neptune in Pisces is the spiritual mission. It is back to source. When you are in that place and you're connected, you are full. Your cup is always full no matter what, because it is unlimited source. And so the happiness comes not from the external, but from you filling your cup from source through whatever spiritual practices you have. And that could be all kinds of things. It doesn't have to be meditation. It doesn't have to be, you know, kirtan, for instance. It doesn't have to be any kind of religious practice. It could be lots of different things. Whatever you fill your cup with from source, it is not, as long as it's not an external thing, this is where this happiness comes from. Now, again, this is a square. This is Sun in Sag, square Neptune and Pisces. Again, trajectories that are not, they are at odds with each other. This is squaring off. I think that there is a certain amount of mastery over ourselves that has to do with the strength that we've cultivated in terms of like creation. You know, the fire energy is about creation. Sagittarius is mutable, so it also is changeable. It can be transmuted into different things. In fact, Sagittarius in the tarot is the alchemy card. And it's taking that energy and bringing it in and bringing it down to our root in order to sustain us, in order to create. And where this square is coming into effect is that we might not really feel motivated to do anything because our cup is spiritually full. And this is, again, going to really come back to the Capricorn energy that is piling up this month, because that is about creating something physical. And if you are in blissful state of happiness because your spiritual cup overfloweth, you are not motivated to do anything because you are one with source. And that is great, but that is not where you can stay when you live on this planet that needs your participation. There is a certain amount of alertness that needs to be happening, and being in our bodies and being aware that creating something is necessary. And so this square, I think, is going to also challenge us there. It's interesting. And this is all happening on the 8th. So we're going to move on to the rest. I mean, there's so much. The week 2, we might have to do 2. I might have to do 2 videos about this after. We'll go to the full moon. How about that? That sounds like a good idea. And then we can pick up from there and do the rest of the month in like a day or so. So I don't want to overwhelm anybody. I know attention spans can be limited in this technology-based world. The next day, the 9th. Oh, this is the 9 of Cups. This is the other one I wanted to show. This, there's a smugness here, you know, and I definitely, you know, happiness and blissfulness, but this is also a smugness. This is like, you know, like, look at everything that I have. I am so connected to source, and like, I get everything that I'm just so abundant and so abundant. This could really keep you from actually participating in life and participating in creating anything. And I think that that's a real danger right now with Neptune and Pisces. So something to keep in mind. We're going to move on to the next day, because we are looking at Mercury moving changing signs into Sagittarius, which is the 9th. So Mercury finally leaves Scorpio and moves into Sagittarius. So let's talk about Sagittarius first. This is art. This is the Sagittarius card. It is number 14. It is 7 times 2. 7 in numerology has a lot to do with opportunity, you know, a moment of a wild card, something not quite lining up, so their adjustment needs to be made. Art in the Rider-Waite, it's temperance, so it's about balance, but in Sagittarius, it's about alchemy. It is about balance, but it's about balancing 2 opposing forces in order to create something else. That is where you see this cauldron here, mutable fire using to transmute and change into something. And it's called art. It's not science, it's art, because there's something there that is beyond just science. There is something, it's about creation. And that is what art is. It's a creative, you're utilizing creative forces when you are creating art. And so this is the Sagittarius card. So we have Mercury moving in to Sagittarius, which is the 8 of Wands, and Mercury is the ruler of this card. Mercury in Sagittarius is the 8 of Wands, the first decan. So swiftness. This card is great, number one, and this is where I want to look at because it is the caduceus. Mercury is the god, you know, Hermes is swift, right? Is the movement of air. It is the, Mercury is the air sign. It is the flow of information. It is not bound by matter. It is light moving, which I really like here because there's the rainbow, which is the spectrum of visible light to us. And then you have these like lightning bolts going off in like very, very balanced directions, you know, creating some sort of geometric thing. And so you have, and it's swift. It's not bound by space or time necessarily. Like light is the fastest thing in our universe so far that we know. Mercury isn't exactly its best form in Sagittarius because there are no boundaries here for Mercury. Sagittarius is all about the big picture. Mercury does rules Virgo as well as Gemini. Gemini is the opposite of Sagittarius. So, and Virgo is square Sagittarius. Virgo is about details and analytics. Sagittarius is all about the big picture. Again, it's about the art of alchemy. It's not necessarily about how you actually create it and the details of that. And so Mercury moving in here, things are going to move quickly. You know, Mercury is going to start expanding. The ideas are going to start expanding. There is going to be a lot of optimism in the way that we're thinking, but there's not going to be a lot of reality. Now, again, the caduceus, this is Hermes. He was the god of medicine. And you have the two intertwining snakes. They represent medicine and the healing arts. And then you have the wings here with the idea that it's about the mind, the using your mind in order to, and your higher mind, right? Medicine is, you have to go to, you know, you have to either be an apprentice or you have to go to med school or something like that in order to be part of the healing arts in some way. It's not like you can just show up one day and call yourself a shaman or call yourself a doctor, because you need to go, you need to learn these things, and you have to employ your higher mind in order to understand and synthesize this material in order to heal people. So there's going to be an expansion of our thoughts, of our thought process, our ideas, which is really great. But again, there are no boundaries. And before the end of the month, Mercury is going to move into Capricorn. And so that's going to be a totally different thing. But for now, we're really going to feel this expansion in ideas. We have Mercury then trining Chiron the next day. So again, the wounded healer in Aries, about the wound of the self, the wound of the masculine, is going to be trining Mercury in a fire sign. So this could go either way. This could be either the big ideas and the expansive optimism could be supporting us in our identity of being wounded, or it could balance us in our conceptions of how to heal others based on this wound. It really depends on where it's happening in your house and how you want to look at these energies. They don't have a positive or negative. They have both. And so you can utilize them however you want. The energy is there regardless. On the 11th, we have Venus moving into conjunction with Saturn. All right, second decan of Capricorn, right? The three of discs, the 3 of pentacles. This is the works card. This is the card that you're starting to actually take what you've learned through your practice of juggling and actually create something with it. It's very, Mars likes to be in Capricorn because there's a lot of energy and drive in Mars, and Capricorn is also about moving forward, initiatory, action-oriented, creating things. Mars rules Aries, which is a cardinal sign, and Capricorn is also a cardinal sign. Now, usually they square each other. So, but Mars in Capricorn, happy here, loves to go to work. Venus is going to conjunct Saturn in this place. There Saturn in Capricorn is at home. It is about the boundary of physical existence. It's about actual responsibility in the real world. It is the paternal figure. It is the boundary which you do not cross. You can't cross. The Lord of Karma, right? The Lord of Time. Venus conjuncting with Saturn in this place is really going to stimulate us to be responsible in our relationships, to be responsible with our money, to take responsibility for all of these aspects in our physical life that feel good to us. This could potentially, again, with Venus in Capricorn, we could be putting other people's feelings aside. And as Venus moves through Capricorn more and more, that could become much more prominent, depending on excuse me, how you can balance that out. This is going to be supreme. This is going to be an acknowledgement of where responsibility lies in creating structures that feel good to us. What is going to be the best for our relationships? What is going to be the best for our projects? Where is the responsibility going to be, and where are we going to put our energy to actually create it? This could be very powerful. This could also be very disruptive and destructive to other relationships if we are not aware of the fact that other people exist in them. And with Mercury trining Chiron right before it, with this large ideas, the big picture, the expansive thoughts, balanced out with this woundedness in ourselves, we could really be very selfish, which is seemingly, we think we're doing the best thing. We think we're doing what's best, and we could very well end up alienating other people or not taking their feelings into consideration. Now, we also could actually be stepping up and doing what needs to be done in order to create these structures for our relationships, for our material resources, and working with our woundedness in a way to heal others. So really, like I said, it always depends on where you're coming from, but this is going to be aligning that Saturnian-like responsibility with Venus. Venus wants to feel good, wants to appease the senses. She is definitely thinking about herself and what feels good. So it could go either way. And then the week ends, the 12th is our full moon. And I think this is where we'll end it here, because after that, I think that this is a good breaking point. The full moon, we're going to have a full moon on the 12th, 19 degrees and 52 minutes of Gemini. That's where the moon's going to be. So our sun is going to be at 19 degrees, 52 minutes of Sagittarius, the opposite sign, the polarity. So Gemini, air sign, second decan, 9 of swords, Mars in Gemini. So what do we got here? We got cruelty is the key word for this card. We got, full moon, Gemini, 9 of swords. We all know this card. Nobody likes this card. Nobody wants this card in a reading, because, I mean, look at it. It's swords dripping with blood and all of these really like scattered, chaotic images that are back here. Cruelty. Cruelty is the word. And it's not cruelty towards anybody but ourselves. And it's the cruelty that we impose on ourselves from our own minds, right? The constant chatter, the thoughts that just go round and round, and ultimately the idea that we can't really figure anything out truly in our minds. So this is the Rider-Waite one. Go back. The cruelty, the waking up from the nightmare because your thoughts are just plaguing you. We're gonna this full moon is really gonna bring this right up to the surface. Now, the great thing about it is that we are, again, coming into the sun is going to be in that second decan of Sagittarius, which I already talked about, which is strength. So this is the Rider-Waite deck version of strength, which is, you know, look at all the wands. He's got them all. He got them all, and he's even holding one, but he's got a little bit of this bandage here. He's got this look on his face. He's like, that's right. I earned this. I earned this by cultivating strength. And I was able to collect all of these things, and now I have them at my disposal. And having the sun here is very, very helpful, but it's also shining the light on what's going on inside of us, which is we are plaguing ourselves with our thoughts. We are trying to make sense of things in our minds over and over, and with things that we cannot make sense out of with our minds. And the same day is when Chiron goes direct in Aries. So talk about supercharging that wounded masculine, that wounded ego coming online even more so. This is, wow, we can really, really let go of so much of how our minds betray us in order to move forward and create something really substantial. But that's if we're willing to actually take the gift of the full moon in order to do that. It's going to shine a light right where those thoughts are constantly plaguing us. And we can learn a lot. We can learn a lot from those thoughts. They tell us a lot about how we talk to ourselves, how we talk to other people, you know, how our minds create the reality that we see ourselves in. If you are, you know, thoughts create things. I think I'm gonna end it here, guys, because that is a lot of information, and I feel like that I would do another 40 minutes just on the rest of the month if I could. Please reach out if you need anything, or if you need some clarification, if you want to book a reading, if you have any feedback. If you'd like to donate to my channel, that would be really incredible. This work takes an incredible amount of time to create, and it's a labor of love, and that's why I ask for donations, because I don't expect anything from anyone, but it does take a lot of my time to do this, and so it would be really helpful to get something as a result of that. So take care of everybody, and I will see you on the next video.